Welcome, everyone, to the 2025 Vibroacoustic Therapy Masterclass. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Shea Thompson. Hi, Shea.
Hello, how's
All
it going?
right. Excellent. Excellent. Glad we finally made this work.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, well, let's dive in. Let's tell people who you are. So, we've got a lot of practitioners that'll be tuning in, a lot of people that are what I would call that curious, who are hearing what it's about. And go ahead. Tell me what your roots are.
Yeah, sure. I mean, my roots go ways back. I've always been very close with my father, Dr. Jeffrey Thompson, and so that has its perks, I guess, in this industry, just to sort of say it lightly. So I was introduced to this at a very young age. I got my hands on my first digital audio workstation, which is how you produce music on a computer, basically, when I was around 9 years old. And I started kind of making little beats and little songs all the way back then, and I've been doing it ever since. So I got introduced to the vibroacoustic therapy. Sort of, my father had pioneered his first sound table, I think before I was born. And he'd always sort of hand built them himself, and he brought me into the fold so I could kind of watch when I was about 13, 14 years old. And he started teaching me how to do it. And by the time I was 15, I started just making them for him. I sort of coined that as my first job.
Oh, wow.
And I've been doing that ever since. So, I'm 34 now, and I've been doing it for 20 years. I didn't really actually realize that until I had sort of considered it the other day. Yeah, it's been a long time. I've been doing it for 2 decades now. So, um, yeah, I've been in the field for a while, and even coming out of high school, I was sort of presented with the question, am I going to follow in my father's footsteps and become a chiropractor and go down the more doctor route, and sort of hybridize it with sound afterwards because I grew up more of a musician and playing piano and guitar. Or am I going to go more the music route, which is what most of my life was at the time? And even after a conversation with my dad, he helped me decide, like, don't follow in my footsteps. You need to go on your own path. Where do you feel like your heart is pulling you? And so I made the decision to go more into professional audio, and which is kind of what I did in my free time anyways. That was always a passion hobby for me. And so it came naturally, especially when I got into school and started studying it. I was very excited about all of that stuff. Um, but it was interesting because when I got into that field, I was actually doing it so that I could learn to speak the language of studio engineers, so that I could better translate and communicate to them the ideas that I had in my head for my own compositions.
Mhm.
But I ended up falling in love with the interaction that you have with clients when they bring their projects in. And, I realized, being a creative myself, I understood also how to speak their language and help them bring their ideas to fruition. So I became very addicted to doing that, and I out of college, went straight into business. I opened my own studio. Thankfully, my dad was kind enough to let me take over his garage, and I tore everything out of there and converted it into a recording studio with a friend of mine. And we used to bring bands in there and record their albums. And my buddy did the video stuff, and we did this sort of package deal for a while. But then, yeah, things shifted, and I ended up getting a more serious studio job at a studio not about 45 minutes north San Diego. And I had a unique opportunity with that space because the gentleman who built it was on his home property. He had a second building on his space there. He had some land. Um, I went in for an interview, and he said, basically, look, like, I built the studio, but I don't have time to run it. I have a day job. I need somebody to come in here and manage this and turn it into something successful. And so I took that job, and he gave me a good cut of whatever came in. And it was my job to figure out the marketing. How do I turn this into a business that works? So
Mhm.
that was my another sort of exercise in entrepreneurship. How do I
Mhm.
take this business that's nothing and nobody knows about, and it's in kind of the middle of nowhere? I mean, you have the advantage of privacy because you got to drive back into these back roads to get there, but there's no foot traffic. So I had to figure out social media and all that stuff. And I was able to bring that up over the course of a few years to one of the top rated studios in San Diego. So I learned a lot from that experience.